Okay, let's dive right in. Picture this. It's 1997. You've got Gary Kasparov, maybe the best chess player ever, right? And he's playing a machine, IBM's Deep Blue.
And the machine wins.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
wins. And it wasn't just, another chess match. It felt huge, like a real moment in history.
definitely. And then fast forward, what, less than 20 years? 2016, Lee Sedol, an absolute giant in the world of Go, a
Yeah.
game that's just vastly more complex than chess.
Mind-bogglingly complex.
Right. And he's up against DeepMind's AlphaGo. And, well, history repeats itself, doesn't it? The machine triumphs again.
These moments, they're iconic, but they're more than just AI winning games, aren't they? They feel like signposts on this bigger journey of understanding complexity itself.
Exactly. It's a journey in how we build systems, artificial systems, that can grapple with really intricate problems. And it kind of parallels our own human quest, trying to understand the world, deal with uncertainty.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that trajectory.
Yeah.
We're using William L. Weaver's reflections in From Checkmate to Tell as our main guide here.
It's a great framework.
Yeah, tracing AI's path through these games, chess, then Go, then onto poker. And we're not just looking at the wins, but asking, what does this tell us about systems thinking, about how science works? And maybe most importantly, what can you take away from this for navigating your own complex world?
Because that's the really fascinating part, isn't it? Each game presented a totally different kind of challenge, a harder system in many ways, pushed AI development in, well, sometimes unexpected directions.
Right.
So our mission today is to really pull apart those key insights, understand the different types of systems AI had to master, how the strategies had to change, and, like you said, how this mirrors our own efforts, especially in science, to model reality. We're looking for those kind of aha moments.
Yeah, the connections between, say, game logic and the kind of problems you face every day. It's about seeing that common thread.
From game boards to real-world decision-making.
Exactly. Strategy games, AI, science, your own choices. Yeah. It's all connected. So let's start where it all sort of captured the public imagination. Chess.
The classic challenge.
For decades, chess was the benchmark for AI, wasn't it? The big goal. And mostly because it's a game of, well, perfect information.
That's the key term. Perfect information. Everything you need to know is right there on the board. Visible to both players. No secrets, no hidden hands.
All the pieces, where they can move, the objective. It's all known.
Right. In systems thinking terms, you'd call it a relatively closed system. You know all the parts, you know all the rules governing how they interact. There aren't really any hidden variables baked into the game's mechanics.
But, okay, even if everything's visible,
Yeah.
the sheer number of ways a game can unfold is just astronomical.
Yeah.
That term, combinatorial search space, comes up a lot. Can you maybe help us visualize that? What does that really mean?
Sure. Imagine the game starting like the base of a tree trunk. Now, every possible first move you could make is a branch splitting off from that trunk.
Yeah.
Then, from the end of each of those branches, you get more branches splitting off. Those are all the opponent's possible replies to your first move. And this just keeps going turn after turn, move after move.
So the tree just gets enormous incredibly quickly.
Exactly. That combinatorial search space is the entire tree. Every single possible sequence of moves, every possible game that could ever be played according to the rules. It's not infinite, but it's so mind-bogglingly vast that exploring every single pathway, even for a supercomputer, becomes practically impossible after just a few moves deep.
Wow. So the challenge isn't figuring out the rules, it's figuring out which path through this gigantic maze leads to a win.
That's it precisely. Finding the optimal path, or at least a really, really good one, through this incredibly deep and wide tree. And that's where those early AI systems, like Deep Blue beating Kasparov, were such a breakthrough. It wasn't about, human-like creativity.
It is about raw power.
Raw computational power, yeah, coupled with really clever algorithms for navigating that tree efficiently.
Deep Blue could famously look at millions of positions per second, right?
Yeah.
Planning many moves ahead. How did it manage that without just getting bogged down?
Well, it was a mix of brute speed and smart searching. It calculated incredibly fast, yes. But it also used something called heuristics.
Heuristics. Rules of thumb.
Exactly. Think of them as expert-designed shortcuts programmed into the AI. They let the machine make a quick estimate, a guess, about how good a particular board position is without having to simulate the rest of the game from that point.
So it's not just calculating checkmate in 15 moves. It's looking 10 moves down one path and saying, okay, this looks promising. I've got more pieces. My king's safe. Versus another path where maybe things look shaky.
Precisely. Chess heuristics look at things like material advantage, just counting the value of the pieces left, control of the center of the board, king's safety, obviously, how much mobility your pieces have, pawn structure. All these factors get combined into a kind of numerical score for a position.
And that score helps it decide where to look next.
Yeah. Deep Blue used these scores way down in its search tree to compare different potential lines of play. It helped it decide, okay, this branch looks promising, let's explore it deeper. This other branch, probably not worth the computation time, let's prune it. It was all about deep, systematic calculation and evaluation based entirely on the known state of the board and the rules.
And if we put on our systems thinking hat, like the source suggests, Chess AI really nailed how to handle a closed system.
Oh, absolutely. It showcases a few key things. First, you have to be able to model the system, perfectly represent the board, the pieces, the rules, without any error.
Makes sense.
Second, you need efficient ways to explore the state space, that huge tree, which means powerful search algorithms and clever pruning, like we talked about.
Right, the heuristics.
Third, you need to evaluate and optimize, using those evaluation functions, those heuristics, to consistently pick the path that maximizes your calculated advantage. And finally, it's about understanding interconnectedness, how moving one pawn here might affect your queen way over there, the ripple effects.
This whole approach, hyperlogical, analytical, calculating within a defined system. It reminds me of someone.
I know where you're going. The source nails it with the Mr. Spock analogy from Star Trek, right?
Totally. Spock's whole deal is logic. Assess the known variables, apply the rules, compute probabilities, find the most rational path.
He's the perfect embodiment of that Deep Blue style intelligence. In situations where you have all the information and the rules are clear, Spock's logic is unbeatable. He's optimizing within a defined system, just like Deep Blue was optimizing on the chessboard.
But, and this is the interesting part, Spock sometimes got tripped up, didn't he? When things got less logical.
Exactly. That's what the source points out. Adversaries who were unpredictable, maybe emotional, or just didn't follow the expected rational course of action, they could sometimes get the better of Spock.
Which highlights the limits of that pure logic approach.
Precisely. It's incredibly powerful within its domain, but that domain is defined by transparency and rules. It can be vulnerable when you introduce hidden information, irrationality, or, crucially, deception, things you don't find in chess.
So the big takeaway from Chess AI, it was about mastering logic and massive computation within a defined, known space. A monumental achievement, but sort of the end of Act 1.
It showed us what computation could do in a world of perfect information. But the next great challenge, Go, required something fundamentally different.
Yeah, Go. If chess felt like exploring a huge mansion, Go was like charting an entire galaxy. The rules seem simpler on the surface, don't they? Place stones, surround territory.
Deceptively simple. But the larger board size, typically 19 by 19, combined with those simple rules, just leads to this explosion of possibilities that dwarfs chess.
We're talking numbers that are hard to even conceptualize.
Almost impossible. The estimated number of legal board positions in Go, something like 2.1 times 10 to the power of a 170.
Okay, wait. Remind me, how many atoms in the universe?
Roughly 10 to the power of 80.
So, orders and orders of magnitude more Go positions than atoms.
Yeah, it's just staggering. And what that means, practically speaking, is that the Deep Blue strategy, brute force search and evaluation, is completely, utterly impossible for Go. You cannot calculate your way through it.
No amount of processing power is going to map out that tree.
Not even close. Which is why Go remained this kind of holy grail for AI researchers for so long, seen as much, much harder than chess. Human Go masters don't rely on calculating dozens of moves ahead in precise detail.
It's more intuitive, right? A feel for the game.
Exactly. It's about pattern recognition, understanding the overall shape of the board, the strategic potential of positions, things that look a lot more like intuition developed over years of play.
And then along comes AlphaGo. DeepMind, 2016. Lee Sedol. This wasn't just an incremental improvement. This was a different kind of AI winning.
It absolutely was a genuine paradigm shift. AlphaGo didn't beat Lee Sedol by simply out-calculating him, looking deeper down the branches like a supercharged Deep Blue. Its breakthrough came from combining two really powerful techniques: deep neural networks and Monte Carlo tree search.
Okay, let's break those down a bit. Deep neural networks, what are they doing here?
Think of them loosely like artificial brains, inspired by how our own neurons are connected. But instead of being explicitly programmed with rules like king safety is worth X points, like Deep Blue's heuristics,
They learn.
they learn. They learn by being fed massive amounts of data, in AlphaGo's case, millions and millions of recorded human Go games. They get really good at spotting complex patterns and relationships within that data, building their own internal models of what makes a good position or a promising move, without a human telling them exactly what to look for.
So they learn pattern recognition from human games. And the Monte Carlo tree search part. How is that different from the chess search?
It's much smarter, more statistical. Instead of trying to explore every possible move from a position, which is impossible in Go, Monte Carlo tree search uses the neural network's evaluation as a guide. It says, okay, these few moves look promising.
Based on the neural net's intuition.
Right. Then it runs thousands of rapid, lightweight, simulated games playing moves out randomly or semi-randomly to the very end, starting from those promising positions. By seeing which initial moves most often led to wins in these simulations, it gets a statistical estimate of how good each move actually is. It's sampling the possibilities, not exhaustively searching them.
So the neural net points the way, and the Monte Carlo search does a kind of focused exploration.
That's a great way to put it. The neural nets prune the impossibly vast tree down to manageable, promising areas, and the Monte Carlo search explores those areas smartly using statistics. But the real kicker, the thing the source really highlights, was the training.
It wasn't just learning from humans. It played itself.
Millions and millions of times. That self-play component was revolutionary. It learned the basics from human games, sure. But then it started playing against slightly modified, slightly improved versions of itself over and over and over.
And in doing so, it could discover things humans never had.
Exactly. It was exploring parts of the Go universe, strategies and patterns that were completely novel. Every game was a learning experience, win or lose. It fed that outcome back into refining its neural networks. This iterative loop of play, feedback, learning, that's what allowed it to blow past human capabilities so quickly.
And this led to what you call that intuition-like ability.
That's really the heart of it. Because it couldn't calculate everything, AlphaGo had to develop this sophisticated sense of strategic potential. Its neural networks, trained on all that data and self-play, learned to recognize incredibly subtle, complex patterns across the whole board, the kind of thing a human master develops over decades.
Like seeing the shape of the game.
Yeah, seeing the flow, the long-term implications, the critical areas, without needing to compute precise variations 20 moves deep. It learned to find practical, high-probability paths to victory in this ridiculously complex space.
Which, from a systems thinking perspective, is a massive leap from chess.
Huge leap. It showed AI could handle unfathomable complexity systems where you simply can't map everything out. It demonstrated the power of recognizing emergent patterns, complex strategic ideas arising from simple rules, learned from data, not programmed.
And the search was heuristic, but learned heuristics.
Right. Learned intuition guiding the search, not just fixed rules. And crucially, it showed AI systems could adapt and learn powerfully through feedback and self-exploration. They became experts by playing the game.
And the proof that this wasn't just about games is AlphaFold.
This is where it gets incredibly exciting. The same core ideas, the same kind of AI architecture neural networks trained on huge data sets, combined with intelligent search that conquered Go. DeepMind applied them to one of the biggest challenges in biology, protein folding.
Predicting how a protein gets its 3D shape. Why is that like Go?
Well, proteins are essential for life, and their function depends entirely on their complex 3D shape. They start as a linear chain of amino acids, but how that chain folds up into the correct functional shape, well, there's an absolutely astronomical number of ways it could fold.
Another massive search space problem.
Exactly. Finding the single correct stable fold from the sequence is like finding the best move in Go, navigating an immense space of possibilities. AlphaFold used similar AI techniques to achieve revolutionary accuracy in predicting these structures, something scientists had struggled with for 50 years.
And the source even mentions a 2024 Nobel Prize.
Yes, the Nobel Prize in Chemistry recognized this incredible progress, specifically citing the work behind AlphaFold by Demis Hassabis, John Jumper, and also David Baker, who worked on related methods. It's powerful proof that this Go-inspired AI, this ability to find optimal solutions in vast possibility spaces, is revolutionizing science. The line from AlphaGo to AlphaFold is direct.
Okay, so the big takeaway from Go. AI mastered systems where the sheer scale made perfect information insufficient. It developed learned intuition and pattern recognition, leading to huge breakthroughs in science. It learned to see the forest, not just calculate every single tree.
It was AI developing a kind of strategic understanding, moving beyond pure calculation towards something much more like expert human judgment in complex fields.
Which sets the stage perfectly for the next level of complexity, a game that feels even more like the messy real world. Poker. No limit Texas Hold'em, specifically.
Right. Because poker throws in curveballs that chess and Go just don't have. It's not just about scale or patterns, it's about fundamental unknowns, uncertainty, and even, well, lying.
Let's unpack those. First big difference, incomplete information.
This is the absolute core of poker. Unlike chess or Go where everything's visible, in poker you only know your cards. Your opponent's hands are hidden. You are always operating with partial information about the state of the game.
Which means you can't just calculate the best move. You have to think probabilistically.
Constantly. What hands could my opponent have, given how they're betting and what's on the board? What are the odds the card I need will come on the next street? You're swimming in probabilities, and you have to keep updating your mental model as more information trickles in, cards revealed, bets made.
And then there's the really human element. Deception. Bluffing.
Yeah, this is a massive shift. In chess and Go, every move is honest in the sense that it's aimed at improving your position according to the rules. In poker, you can bet like you have a monster hand when you have nothing, trying to scare opponents off. Or you can check raise with the nuts. You're deliberately injecting false signals, noise, into the information flow.
Trying to manipulate the opponent's perception.
Exactly. And good play isn't just about your own cards, it's about reading your opponent's.
Learning modeling.
Right. Are they tight or loose? Aggressive or passive? Do they bluff a lot? How do they react under pressure? You're building a psychological model, trying to figure out their tendencies, their strategy, maybe even their emotional state.
Okay, so hidden info, probability, deception, psychology. This feels less like Spock's neatly defined world and more like, well, someone comfortable with chaos.
And the source brings in the perfect counterpoint, Captain James T. Kirk.
Ah, Kirk, the ultimate improviser.
Exactly. Spock is the master of logic within known systems. But Kirk, often shown as a pretty decent poker player himself, understood that life, conflict, it's often more like poker than chess. Full of unknowns, probabilities, reading people, taking calculated risks.
He wasn't always by the book, but he was brilliant at adapting, finding unexpected solutions, often by understanding and exploiting his opponent's assumptions or fears.
His genius was making decisions under pressure with incomplete data, reading the room or the alien bridge, and leveraging psychology.
Well,
The source mentions the classic example, the Corbomite maneuver.
right, the bluff. Remind us quickly.
Enterprise faces this overwhelmingly powerful alien ship. Looks like certain destruction, no logical path to victory. So Kirk gets on the comms and bluffs. He claims the Enterprise is equipped with a Corbomite device, totally made up, which, if the Enterprise is destroyed, will automatically destroy the attacker too. Mutually assured destruction.
He didn't have it, but he banked on the alien commander, maybe being cautious or prideful or just unwilling to risk it.
Exactly. It wasn't a Spock-style calculation based on known facts. It was a strategic gamble, a bluff based on assessing the opponent's potential psychology in the face of uncertainty and fear. And it worked. It bought them time, deterred the attack.
That's pure poker, applied to space diplomacy, or space conflict, rather.
It perfectly illustrates the kind of thinking needed when information is incomplete and you need to account for your opponent's hidden state and likely reactions.
And incredibly, AI systems like Labratus and Pluribus have actually achieved superhuman performance in no-limit hold'em by essentially learning to think like Kirk in these complex ways.
They had to. The Chesco approaches wouldn't work. These poker AIs are grounded in sophisticated algorithms, heavily leaning on game theory. Specifically, they try to play strategies that approximate a Nash equilibrium.
Okay, Nash equilibrium. Simplify that for us.
In simple terms, think of it as a state where no player can improve their results by just changing their own strategy, assuming everyone else keeps playing the same way. For poker, a Nash equilibrium strategy is theoretically unexploitable if your opponent is perfectly rational and knows your strategy. It involves doing things in a balanced way, like bluffing just the right amount, value betting just the right amount so your opponent can't easily figure out what you have.
So the AI isn't just playing the odds of the cards, it's playing in a way that's deliberately hard to read, strategically sound.
That's a huge part of it. They use complex algorithms to handle the hidden information, constantly updating probabilities. But their strategy is a mix. They play these game theory optimal GTO lines, which makes them fundamentally robust, but they can also engage in exploitative play. Meaning, if the AI detects that a specific opponent seems to have a weakness, say, they fold too often to big bets, the AI might deviate slightly from the pure GTO strategy to specifically exploit that tendency.
Adapting to the player, not just the math.
Exactly. And yes, they absolutely learn to bluff effectively. Bluffing isn't just random, it's a mathematically necessary part of an optimal poker strategy. The AI learns when and how to bluff to maximize its overall expectation, behaving in ways that integrate deception as a core strategic tool.
So, looking at this through the systems thinking lens, poker AI is tackling the most complex system type yet.
By far. It's about operating in open systems riddled with uncertainty. Key variables are hidden and must be inferred. It requires modeling other agents, their actions, their hidden states, their cards, their likely decision patterns.
Signal versus noise.
Crucially, you have to discern signal from noise. Is that big bet real strength or a bluff? And you also have to generate noise strategically through your own bluffs and varied plays. It's about managing risk and reward under ambiguity, making big decisions with incomplete information, and integrating information from multiple imperfect sources, cards, bets, history, probabilities into a coherent adaptive strategy.
It really brings that Spock-Kirk dynamic into sharp focus, doesn't it?
It really does. You need Spock's analytical mind for the math and the rules, but you absolutely need Kirk's adaptability, his intuition for reading the situation and the opponent, his willingness to act decisively, sometimes deceptively, when the picture is incomplete. The source argues effective solutions in complex systems often need a blend of both.
So, the big poker AI takeaway. Mastering systems with hidden information, uncertainty, strategic interaction, probability, and even deception. It's the most adaptive, maybe even human-like strategic intelligence we've seen emerge from these games. Kirk-like intelligence.
And like you said, the real world most of the time feels a lot more like poker than chess.
Which brings us beautifully to the ultimate game science. The ongoing game scientists play against nature's unknowns. The source draws this really powerful analogy here.
It's a fantastic way to think about it. Scientists are, in a sense, playing this incredibly high-stakes game against the universe. Nature itself is the system profoundly complex, with so many of its crucial workings hidden from direct view, like an opponent's hand.
Nature has rules, the laws of physics, chemistry, biology,
Mm.
but we don't always know them perfectly or how they operate in hidden layers.
Exactly. The fundamental rules are there, but understanding them and predicting how the system behaves, especially when key parts are unobservable, is the challenge. It's like playing a game where the rulebook is incomplete and parts of the board are invisible.
So in this game, what are the scientists' moves?
Hypotheses. The source frames hypotheses as strategic bets or maybe bluffs against ignorance. Based on what we can observe existing data, established theories, the visible board, scientists make educated guesses about the hidden mechanics of nature. A hypothesis is a proposed explanation, a strategic probe into the unknown.
And experiments are how they try to reveal more cards.
That's the perfect analogy. Experiments are carefully designed actions, interventions in the system, aimed at gathering new data. That data acts like turning over community cards in poker. It provides fresh information.
Information that either supports the hypothesis, refutes it, or forces you to adjust it.
Right. Each significant experimental result changes the landscape of possibilities, hopefully narrowing down what the underlying reality might be. It updates the probabilities, so to speak.
And just like poker, science is messy. It's full of uncertainty, ambiguous results, noise.
Oh, absolutely. You deal with noisy measurements, experimental errors, data that could be interpreted in multiple ways. Sometimes you follow a lead that turns out to be a dead end, or an artifact, the scientific equivalent of misreading a tell or falling for a bluff. It requires that blend again.
Spock and Kirk in the lab.
You need Spock's rigorous logic and analytical skill to design experiments carefully, analyze the data objectively, build coherent models. But you also need Kirk's adaptability, his intuition for which questions are worth asking, his resilience in the face of confusing results, his willingness to revise strategy when the data doesn't fit the expected pattern. You need logic for the knowns, intuition for the unknowns.
The source also mentions the iterative nature of science, sounding like AI learning loops.
Yes, it's a continuous cycle. You hypothesize, you experiment, gather data, you analyze, process data into information, build a model, you draw conclusions, generate knowledge, and then you revise your hypothesis or ask new questions based on what you learned. This cycle, which the source connects to my standard systems model, environment yields data, transducer gives information, model leads to knowledge mirrors how AI learns through interaction and feedback.
And this whole scientific process operates on, as the source puts it, the first principles of energy, material, and information, EMI.
Right. At its base, science is about manipulating energy and material in experiments to extract information from the environment, the data, which we then model to build understanding or knowledge about how the universe works.
And incredibly, the very AI capabilities honed in chess, Go, and poker are now becoming powerful tools for scientists playing this game.
Directly. AI's ability to handle massive data sets and spot incredibly complex patterns learned from Go is transforming fields like genomics, drug discovery, climate science. Think AlphaFold again, a direct application.
And the poker-like skills, handling uncertainty.
Increasingly vital. AI is helping design more efficient experiments in complex systems, interpret noisy or incomplete data from fields like ecology or astrophysics, where perfect control is impossible. It can help generate hypotheses by finding subtle correlations in messy data that humans might miss. It's like having a Kirk-like assistant who's good at making inferences from limited, ambiguous signals.
So the core analogy holds. The AI game journey maps onto the scientific method. Scientists, like advanced AIs, need logic, intuition, and skill in navigating uncertainty to probe nature's secrets.
It reveals this deep symmetry in how intelligence, whether biological or artificial, grapples with complex systems that have hidden depths. It's all about modeling the world from incomplete information.
Okay, let's bring this all together. What does this journey from checkmate to tell, as Weaver puts it, mean for you listening to this, living in our complex AI-infused world? We've seen AI evolve from pure calculation in chess
To learned intuition in Go's vastness.
to handling ambiguity and deception in poker.
And this isn't just about games anymore. These capabilities, these ways of tackling different kinds of systems are being deployed everywhere. They're becoming fundamental tools for understanding and interacting with our world.
And the source argues this has profound implications for us, for what it terms education as agency. Explain that connection.
It's a really crucial point. In a world increasingly shaped by AI systems that operate across this whole spectrum from logical and predictable to uncertain and adaptive, simply using AI isn't enough for true agency, for the ability to make informed choices and shape your own future. You need to understand, at some level, how these systems work.
Why is understanding the how so critical for agency?
Because if you have a grasp of these different system types, closed, open, perfect information, incomplete information, and how AI approaches them, you become what the source calls systems literate, grounded in those first principles: energy, material, information, and critical thinking.
And that literacy helps you.
It helps you understand AI's incredible power, but also its very real limitations. You can recognize when AI is likely to excel, like finding patterns in huge data sets, and when it might struggle or be prone to errors, like dealing with true novelty or complex human context not in its training data.
So you can apply these ideas yourself.
Yes. When you face a complex problem, maybe at work, in your community, even understanding the news, you can start to think, is this more like a chess problem with clear rules and knowns? Or is it more like poker with hidden information, probabilities, maybe even people acting strategically? Understanding the type of system helps you choose the right approach.
It helps you evaluate AI's output more intelligently too, right? Knowing it might be dealing with incomplete or biased data.
Exactly. You recognize that real-world AI applications are often operating in poker-like conditions. The data is messy, incomplete, maybe biased, so you know why it's important to question outputs, cross-reference, seek transparency, and apply your own judgment, rather than just accepting the AI's answer as gospel. You understand the game it's playing.
And this understanding allows for more meaningful participation in the big conversations about AI's role in society.
Definitely. Debates about ethics, regulation, fairness, jobs. If you appreciate the difference between AI mastering logical deduction, Spock, and AI learning adaptive strategies under uncertainty, Kirk, you can contribute more thoughtfully. You understand that solving complex societal problems needs both that rigorous analysis and that adaptive, intuitive, maybe even Kirk-like savvy.
So the ultimate vision isn't AI taking over from humans.
Not at all. The source strongly suggests the future is about humans augmented by AI, using these powerful tools to become better thinkers, better problem solvers, better players in the grand game of understanding our universe and tackling global challenges.
That journey from checkmate to recognizing a tell It really signifies this evolution towards a more nuanced, adaptive intelligence, both for machines and for us. An intelligence capable of handling both the known rules and the hidden variables.
It's a mirror reflecting our own cognitive tools, amplified and explored in new ways through the systems we build. It teaches us about intelligence itself.
It's fascinating how these games, these seemingly closed worlds, became the crucibles for capabilities now helping us decode biology and navigate social complexity.
And in doing so, they teach us about the fundamental fabric of reality, energy, material, and the crucial, often hidden role of information.
So here's something to think about. As AI continues to get better at navigating these systems with hidden variables, uncertainty, even deception,
Yeah.
what new frontiers might that unlock? Not just in science, but maybe in your own understanding, your own ability to navigate complex professional or social environments.
And reflecting on that Spock-Kirk dynamic, the power of logic in known systems versus adaptive intuition in uncertain ones, what does this AI journey challenge you to learn about blending those different modes of thinking in your own life? How can you become better at playing the hand you're dealt, even when you can't see all the cards?
Definitely food for thought as you navigate the complex systems all around us. Thanks for diving deep with us today.